For this video, we're testing the Gabby B water distribution tool. Welcome, my name is Patrick Rolfe and this is Coffee with April. For this video, we're continuing what we did last week. Basically, we're testing different pouring techniques with the April brewers. So in the last videos, we showed you the difference between circle pour, center pour, and a mix of the two. And in that video, we preferred the mix. Now, what we want to do here is basically test that version alongside basically using a water distribution tool. So a water distribution tool is something that's been used in various forms for quite some time. And the version that we have here is what is called a Gabby brewer or a Gabby distribution. And it actually comes in two different versions, A and B. What we have here is version B. We actually did a video with version A in the past, so you're more than welcome to check that out as well. Now, what's interesting with these, of course, is that what in theory it allows you to do is to distribute the water evenly and continuously. So it basically controls your flow rate. And what this little device does, which is pretty interesting, is that it actually has kind of two different sections, so an outer and inner section that allows you to, for example, only pour water out on the sides or only pour water in the center. And that makes this kind of unique and also different from the first version of it. Another thing that we kind of appreciate here is that the previous version also had a flow rate controller, which actually caused the water temperature to drop a little bit too much for us to be able to brew the coffee the way that we wanted to. This only has the bottom part, not the upper part, which is allowing us to keep the brewing temperature a little bit higher. But enough about that. Basically, what we're gonna do is to try them side by side. We have the same grind size, which is about 762 microns, working with Afterglow from Finca Deborah, which is a natural processed geisha, one of our favorite coffees this season. We're using the same water temperature, which is 92 degrees Celsius. And the game here is really just testing side by side, which one do we prefer. So let's get brewing. Now, the only limitation really that we can find with the new device here, the Gabi, is that we're actually limited also to the amount of water we're able to pour, simply because the device is actually filling up. So what we do here is basically a slightly slower pour, starting with 30 grams in the outer part, and then filling up to 100 in the center part. So the total pouring time here is actually 20 seconds instead of our kind of usual 10-second pour. Now the other brew here, we're doing a standard April recipe. So that's 12 grams of coffee to 200 grams of water, dividing the pour into two different steps, 100 and 100, right? And then we're mixing the circle pour and the center pour. And then here with the Gabi, again, we do a 30 gram outer pour and 70 gram center pour. And that will take us 20 seconds instead of 10 seconds on the other version. So the pouring is done. We're gonna let both of these drain through, and then we're gonna go back, evaluate. We're gonna look at the coffee bed. We're gonna look at the total brew time, obviously taste, make some measurements, and then be right back to you guys and share the results. We're back with a few observations. First of all, two really delicious cups of coffee. We said this many times before, but regardless of roasting and brewing, it's really the raw material, the green coffee, that dictates the quality of the final cup. And this is truly an exceptional green coffee. That being said, we have two quite different expressions, which is really interesting here. Let's first start by total brewing time. So the standard kind of April recipe here generated about 3-minute brew time and a TDS of 1.25, whereas the Gabi version here generated a total brew time, and that's actually when the water then has gone through the coffee, of about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So definitely a little bit faster, and that's interesting, right? The TDS here is about 1.18, which is significantly lower. That being said, based on how the cup is tasting, we don't think it's too low. We actually think it's rather delicious. What's interesting here then is to discuss, but why is it lower? We use the same dose, the same grind size, same temperature, and so on, right? And there's a few things to discuss and look into for future videos here. One is obviously turbulence or lack of turbulence. So when we pour directly into the coffee bed, you're gonna have more turbulence and in theory extract more, right? You may not have the same uniformity, but you will have less turbulence. Two is temperature. So we brewed both of these on the same temperature. In theory, that would mean that basically the water, when it hits the coffee, would be lower in temperature on the Gabi version than what it would be on the April version. Also makes a lot of sense. So naturally, the interesting question here is how would the Gabi cup taste if it has the same TDS as the April version, right? That being said, again, we think both are really, really tasty. The main difference here is that the April version becomes fuller, it becomes sweeter, it becomes a little bit less complex than what the Gabi version actually does. But what happens is that the Gabi version starts out being the tastier version when it's in a hot temperature. But as it cools down, the April version actually kind of outshines it and tastes better. It's a little bit more sweeter, it's a little bit more intense, and a little bit more just complex in the colder range, but not in the hot range, right? So two really good cups of coffee, just in different ways. We're excited to explore the Gabby B more. We're kind of happy we discovered it because we do prefer it over the first version, the Gabby A. And we recommend all of you to kind of look into it. And if you have other ideas, other tools like this that might help us brew taste your coffee, we're always really happy and excited to try them. So please comment below. Maybe you're using the Gabby B yourself. As per usual, we're going to take this conversation over to Patreon and we're going to be really geeky there. So if you want more information, then make sure you sign up for it. And with that, we want to thank you all for watching and have a good day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.